Good afternoon and happy Easter to those who observe and celebrate it. It's a beautiful sunny day, so I hope wherever you are enjoying it, getting some sunshine in, some good bike rides in perhaps, and doing whatever makes you happy. So, in case you did not see my Instagram post on my personal account, I would like to share that I have a really positive life update that I'm going to go into during this video. So welcome, and let's get into it. So my name is Dan. I am currently 28 years old, living out on Cape Cod, which is a story unto itself. But I have finally gone in a new career direction. I've finally gone into a new career direction where I'm no longer going to work in front desk customer service, and I am now going to work behind the scenes in a small private office doing order entry for a cutting board company. So before I get into what this new job is, I want to sort of go over what my whole history has been like since I started college about 9.5 years ago. So I went to Springfield College, 2011 to 2015, September to May. Very traditional, 4 years, 8 semesters in and out. I majored in communications and sports journalism, which is actually a field I really don't have any interest in working in, but I knew it was a major that I could complete based on the coursework that was involved with it. A lot of writing classes, a couple literature classes, and even obviously sports writing journalism type classes. There's also a video-based class where we did 5 projects for the semester, and that was the grade. And that was something I actually really enjoyed. It forced me to use Macs, Apple Macs and Apple computers, and I'm more of a Microsoft Windows guy, so using a different operating system was definitely a growth opportunity. So while I was there, I ran track and cross country for about 3 years. I took 1 semester off sophomore year and then I came back. And I also worked in the campus recreation department for all 4 years, starting in September, ending in May, straight through. It started in September 2011, ending in May 2015. And I ended up, when I left the cross-country and track program, getting a second job there. I had already been an intramural sports official and supervisor for a little while, but then I picked up a second on-campus job in basically the member services, essentially working in the gym, the campus rec facility itself, not just officiating intramural sports within the building. And that kind of started me on the track that I've finally now left 6 years later, where it was basically member services at a fitness facility of one kind or another. I kind of bounced around a lot. I went from the campus recreation center at Springfield College, where, believe it or not, I worked at that job even during my breaks. I did not take spring break senior year. I just worked straight through, and both weekends of it, I officiated some off-campus soccer events because they were scheduled and they were going on, and I was like, you know what? I need the money, they need the refs, so sign me up. And then over the summer between my junior and senior year, I worked straight through. The summer after my senior year, I was actually able to work straight through, so did that. And then for 2015-16, I actually went to graduate school. I attempted a master's degree that I did not end up completing, and I will do a separate video about that in depth. But during that time there, I was at SUNY Cortland in central New York. I worked at their campus rec center and also officiated intramural sports. But I partly did not make it through my graduate program because I sort of approached it like undergrad, where I thought, okay, I can take my courses and work 2 on-campus jobs. That ended up not really being the case. You really should only work one job at most, and if that, do it sort of sparingly, because a graduate course load is at least double what an undergraduate senior year course load is. So I worked at their Student Life Center as a front desk person and equipment checkout person, and even up in their game room that they have in that building. And I did some intramural sports officiating, and that kind of spurred me. After I left Cortland in 2016, I went to do some other things. I finally got my first out-of-college job working for a fundraising assistance company called Booston Enterprises. They're still around, but in a very different form. And during what is now 2016, 2017, essentially, I also coached for a couple different soccer clubs on the youth side, and I've continued officiating, obviously, and included one season of high school, but that was only one time in the fall of 2016, and then I was done. And so after that, I eventually go to work for Boston sports clubs in basically late 2017. So again, that's like where I really start, I guess, for better or worse, on track of the member services at a front desk type thing. Do that for a while, then I go work independently, and then finally picked up a campus rec supervisor job, member services at MIT Recreation. So one thing to clarify for that is, even though I worked on their campus, MIT apparently likes to really contract out its departments, so that a lot of people who work on the campus don't actually work for the university. And I was one of them. My HR was actually in Minnesota. It was not anywhere near Cambridge, and that's just how MIT likes to do things. They contract out way too many things, in my opinion, but that's their business, not mine. And that position in particular was honestly the one that triggered my desire to move away from front desk customer service. It was very hectic. This is all before the coronavirus pandemic, keep in mind. So very hectic, a lot of people all the time, all of whom needing my attention completely independently from one another, like long lines, and just a lot of people unfortunately didn't really have a favorable opinion of me there. I will be honest, I was not well liked by the members for some reason, even though they didn't know my name. They just thought I did not provide good customer service to them. And that was kind of disheartening, because I was like, well, I'm here for 40 hours a week trying to do something for them, and it's not really working out. Another thing about that position was basically, I sort of thought it would be a little bit more behind the scenes. I was sort of hoping for that, because I was already kind of trending toward wanting to be a more behind the scenes worker than a frontline worker. But then it turned out that this position was literally 100% front lines. Like, I did not get a break from being in the fray and being the face of the thing during my shifts. Like, it was basically, I would take my breaks, walk over to the next building to like eat my lunch, and then come back, and it was right back into the thick of things. And over the years since I left college, I've really kind of gone from being an extroverted person to an introverted person. I don't really value superficial relationships with a lot of strangers. I value more close relationships and friendships with a few people, with a smaller number of people. And so when I finally left MIT Recreation, I was actually more relieved than not, because I was like, okay, maybe I can finally transition into a different direction now. And so, I applied for a bunch of jobs. This is like fall 2019. I applied for a bunch of jobs in like data entry, order entry, stuff that would be behind the scenes. But then what is kind of the problem at this point is my resume still shows and screams front desk customer service, membership representative, membership supervisor, membership this, membership services that, blah blah blah. And it made it really hard to actually transition away from that. because when people look at my resume, they're going to think I'm an extroverted, customer service oriented individual. But the problem is I'm truthfully not. Not at this point, no. And I can be good at it, but I feel like I'm not being my authentic self there. And so the next job I did end up getting in the fall 2019 was at the YMCA at Cape Cod. I enjoyed that, and actually I think that job will have helped me in my transition away from the front desk stuff, because about half of it was front desk, but half of it was truly behind the scenes administratively and working with the database and doing the scholarships. There were shifts where I was definitely the front line and everyone knew who I was, but there were also a lot of shifts where I didn't cover the front desk at all. And that was a nice thing. So I do that until summer of last year, when you can probably guess what happened in the summer of 2020. I'm not going to say exactly because there was a severance agreement that I had to sign, and I don't know if it's still valid or not, but I'm not going to take the risk of it still being valid. So I'm not going to really disclose the details as to what happened. It is private, it is confidential, so you're just going to have to accept that, unfortunately. But basically, with that job, we got notice that the impact was going to affect us all directly, and that made me think, okay, how can I sort of change my resume here to make myself look like a behind-the-scenes person? Because I did plenty of behind-the-scenes work there, enough that I could really spin it to show that I'm that kind of a worker. And so I apply for a bunch of places. Some places are behind the scenes, some places end up being more frontline, or sometimes managers at some health clubs and stuff reach out to me because, again, they're seeing my resume, they're seeing that I'm a frontline person, quote unquote, and then I tell them, hey, thank you, but I don't think this is a good fit because I want to be more behind the scenes than this seems to be. So they're like, okay, thank you. Actually, one interesting fact is when I was at the Y, and even after I left, they told me pretty much that they could tell in their observations that I enjoyed the behind-the-scenes aspect of my job there much more than the front desk customer service. My direct supervisor told me that, and so did the HR director, who is a different person within the building. So that was a completely correct assessment, because it's true. I like the behind-the-scenes administrative piece a lot better, and I'll get into why that is. So, but it took a lot of patience still, because for better or worse, my next job after the Cape Cod Y ended up being a front desk customer service job. Classic. And the reason for that was honestly just because I knew it was going to be the easiest to get at that point. I was only going to be able to find a part-time job with the intent of finding a full-time non-customer service job while working part-time. And so I work at the Gleason Family YMCA. I commute 4 times as much for 1/4 of the income, but I suck it up. I do everything I can to save some money, try to invest wherever I can, and just apply, or I take some online classes as well in bookkeeping and financial accounting in order to try to bolster my skills. And then that takes me to where I am today. So last Monday, I started working, or I think it was the Thursday previous actually, I started working for an agency at the site of their client somewhere else on Cape Cod, doing order entry work. It's perfect because I get to be in a small private office with just the 2 owners of the business. Small business, but with a big market. And I don't interact with customers. I just process all their orders. So that's everything from receiving the order online, to adding it to the system, to charging for the order, to adding it to the spreadsheet, to then making the shipping label, making the production sheet, and filing the order forms. It's great, it's perfect, and I couldn't ask for any better than this. So basically the moral of the story is, be patient. When you want to make a career change or career transition, it takes time. Like, it's taken really 3 years or 2 years even to fully complete the change that I'd wanted to start. And I will advise you though, if you are early in a career and you realize that it might not be for you, that's when it's time to act. Because the worst thing that could happen is that you truly get stuck and pigeonholed into a career that you do not like. And if you keep going from one job to job to job in a field that you don't really want to be in, it's going to make it that much harder, because your resume or your LinkedIn or your Indeed profile, whatever you use, will show that you have experience in that field, and places that you apply to or places that do headhunting will see that you have experience in that field and not really care that it's not your field that you want to be in. They'll just think, we need X. This person has X. Let's reach out to that person. Simple as that. Smaller places will definitely care more about the fit than bigger places, but some bigger places just want to plug people in. And you have to be really careful about that. Like, I could have definitely made my transition out of member services much earlier if I'd realized it earlier, or at the very least acted on it a lot earlier. If I'd known also to spin my resume to show what I want to do, to show that I've done what I want to do much earlier, I would have made this transition a lot sooner as well. Now, the reasons in brief why I want to get out of member services are, I like having direct control of my workflow. I like being able to